Erie. It's Monday. Yeah, right over there.
Oh, I'm great.
It's Monday, October 14th. Welcome back for another Flagship City Sports Talk brought to you by Quick Fill. My name is Nick Artman. As always, I'm joined by the Honorable Paul Adamczak. Paul, you're just breaking stuff here in the studio this morning.
I'm not breaking stuff this morning. I'm coming in hot, though. I got to tell you, this was a great weekend. How many times does this happen? That Penn State wins and Ohio State loses in the same weekend.
Not
Fantastic
often recently,
stuff.
that's for sure.
You're darn tooting it's not. It's a rare occasion. I'm fired up.
Throw in a little bit of Edinburgh, and you had a good weekend.
Oh, that's true. We had a couple of high school favorites win as well, so that was it was a good weekend.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to worry about watching the Dolphins, so that was great.
In the big chair, we got Rich Smith. How you doing, man?
It was a weekend.
Yeah, we
was a
talked
weekend.
about that. Yeah, we'll have to figure something out. Maybe we can do something that we can help you out on the show.
They should call me Hitchhiker.
Yeah. If you saw Rich on 79 this weekend, make sure you give him a toot toot.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Get out of the road.
And back from playing hooky, we got Isaac Petcash from Erie News Now. Isaac, how you doing this morning?
What's up, boys? Rich, I might be joining you on 79 in mid-November, by the way, so you've got a compatriot where that's concerned.
Well, you know what's strange is, like, when I was back in college, I broke down in exactly the same place. It's like, Twilight Zone-ish.
Wow,
Like
I broke down on 79
Murphy's
once,
Law.
too.
Yeah, Murphy's Law, exactly, yeah.
No, it's good. I'll tell you what, the sports weekend started out really bad. The Tigers couldn't figure out a way to pitch to Cleveland, and then everything else went well. Penn State won, Steelers get the dub, Ohio State loses. It was an overall a decent weekend.
Yeah, no, same here. Can't complain. I was down sick for the last week, which was not good, but you know what that meant? I got to watch a lot of sports, so I
Love
can't,
that for you.
Yeah, can't really complain.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I'm feeling a little down under the weather myself.
I will not be responsible. I'm not that kind of doctor. I cannot write those sorts of excuses.
Oh, okay. I'll find one.
All right. With a lot of news to talk about, we better just go ahead and get right into it. Let's jump into the North Shore Rewind, brought to you by Duska's Funeral Home. As is tradition here on the Flagship City Sports Talk, we pick kind of our D10 teams or players of the week. We're in week 8 already, fellas. Season is, winding down. We don't have too many of these left to talk about, but then it's playoff season.
Like one regular season, and then you have that weird, break at the end of the season where some teams play and some teams don't. It's going to be fun.
Which is like the end of season equivalency of week 0.
Like a bye week. Yeah, it's the end of week or end of season week 0. It's wild.
Get your midterms done so you can get ready for playoffs is what that is.
I kind of liked it, though, when I was coaching, because you get that end of the game. If your season's over, if you're not a playoff team, you can schedule one more game.
Yeah.
The seniors get one more time in front of their friends and family.
Yep.
And if you are a playoff team, it's a nice, hey, we're going to cancel the game, or if we didn't schedule one, we're going to sit back, we're going to get ready for the playoff game, we're going to get nice and healthy, we're going to get 14 days of rest. It is a well-placed buy or option.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, ramping up. You got playoffs coming up
Yes.
and end of semesters for a lot of high school kids. Like, there's a lot of merit to that one. Week 0,
no merit to that one.
That's another story. All right, so to kick us off this week, Isaac, why don't you go first? Pick one, Isaac. Pick one.
You guys better have multiple. You always get on me for having 3. I'm not the overachiever. I'm sitting in the back of the classroom this week and never raised my hand. Let's go with the team.
He really is with me. All right.
I was going to say, I don't think Isaac's been ever in the back of the room sitting kid in his life.
Let's go with a guy from a team that I thought was the most impressive of the week, and that's the Corey Beavers. They beat Fairview 40-7 last week to claim a share of the region lead. And Mason Savitz, this kid had 2 touchdowns coming into week 8 this season. He has 3 in Friday night's win against Fairview, 2 receiving touchdowns and then a pick 6, one of 2 pick 6 that Corey had in the game against the Tigers. And really was dominant. I mean, Corey just went to option 3, 4, 5, 6. They did whatever they wanted against the Tigers on Friday night. And it was a complete game. Offense, defense, special teams, they did everything right, whether it's the punt return touchdown at the beginning of the game, the 2 pick 6s, the offense was in sync. And now Mason Savitz and this Corey Beaver team is looking at a potential number 3 seed in Class 3A, which would be huge for this Corey squad that's had some bumps in the road the last 10 years. So I'll go Mason Savitz from Corey. What a performance from the Beavers on Friday.
Yeah, they're a team that I've kind of kept my eye on all year. Hot out the gate, kind of had some tough losses there in the middle, but seems like, they're getting hot at the right time in terms of turning it around. I mean, when you catch 6 passes, 93 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and you pull a Travis Hunter and you have an interception return for a touchdown, you're probably going to end up on this list. Throw in 3 defensive special team touchdowns in a 40-7 victory at Fairview. Yeah, Corey, you're looking good. Paul, who's yours?
This is going to be tough. You just yelled at Isaac for the 2-person thing. I've got another Travis Hunter on here.
I'll allow this one.
Here's what I'm going to go with on this one. Yeah, I have to go for the twofer.
You do.
Because I have 2 guys on the same team who broke program records on Friday night.
I'll allow it.
First is Blaze Myers, went 24-37, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air, broke the program record for touchdown passes at McDowell, a pretty good school historically for football. Also ran for 90 yards and a touchdown in that one. And I got to say, James Ziegler. Same age. They've been playing together since middle school football. He caught 5 passes for 96 yards and a touchdown and broke the program record for career receiving yards. What a game. What an ending to upend a powerhouse Ohio team in front of the home crowd. Touchdown pass with a second left to win the game. Unbelievable. And a couple records falling in the same game. Blaze Myers and James Ziegler. I know you don't like the 2, but they were the guys who impressed me most on Friday.
It's not that I don't like the 2. I just like to pick on Isaac is really what it is.
And the irony of that, too, is that the touchdown that gave Blaze the record was to James Ziegler. So those 2 are going to be tough come playoff time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, Paul, you hit the nail on the head here, too, and this was not an easy win for them. This was a tough team coming in from Ohio.
Yeah, was it their first loss? McDowell handed them the first loss?
Second.
Or were they? I was going to say they were 7-1 coming in then. Okay, yeah. So this was a 1-loss team coming in, but the point remains this was not a cupcake matchup.
No, not at all. All right. Well, you guys did take mine, but you left. Yeah, but you left me one of my favorites because any chance I can get to talk about this kid, I am all for. Vinny, the Don Feliciano. Mercyhurst Prep. I mean, I feel like we talk about this kid every week, but it's not because he is maybe becoming my favorite. It's that he's dominating on the ground. The sophomore ran for 343 yards and 5 touchdowns on 35 carries in a 42-6 win over Iroquois. Vinny says, hey, I can do this in Madden, so I'm just going to do it in real life. And he puts up video game numbers every week. This week he scored on runs of 1, 85, 6, 27, and 5. So it's not like this is like, okay, Derrick Henry style, get in at the 1, we're going to pound this in.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the hands. He's got the ball in his hands. He has a chance to score from anywhere on the field.
One of those touchdowns was from his own 15-yard line. You're just, all right, it's first down. Let's run the ball. Let's get something going.
Let's make it a short.
Gone.
He leads District 10 in rushing with 1,733 yards and has 23 rushing touchdowns in 8 games.
Can legitimately go over 2K next week.
Yeah. Mercyhurst Prep can wrap up the region. You think about that. Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I just processed that. I'm like, well, okay. Well, that's, 260 some yard. Okay. Yeah, you're right. He could probably.
I was going to say he's probably done that. Isaac can double check me at least 3 times this year. He's gone 250 plus.
It's been there. Prep, who I think, Isaac, I don't know. I think maybe we didn't really have our eyes in coming into this season. They had a lot of turnover, maybe looked like a retool year for them, really kind of, look like a powerhouse again as they get ready to wrap up the region against Eisenhower next week.
They're kind of like McDowell, I think, in a lot of senses, that they lost a lot of talent from last season, particularly up front on the offensive line. And I think it kind of took Jeff Root a few games to figure out what he had. And once he found out that he had Vinny, once he found out that he had a passing game that could get the ball to receivers when necessary, I think they started to morph their game plan a little bit. I will say, too, when it comes to the 2A playoffs, I think Farrell's going to be the 1 seed, even though they lost their first 3 games of the season. But last year when Mercyhurst Prep got to the championship against Farrell, they had to have a weapon. If you want to beat Farrell in 2A, you have to have a weapon that is capable of taking games over. Last year for Mercyhurst Prep, it was Paul Johnson. This year they have it in Vinny Feliciano. They didn't beat Farrell last year. It was a close game, low scoring. But, Vinny is capable of potentially putting 3 or 4 touchdowns up in a game by himself. They could give Farrell a run for their money, and I think that's a big thing for Jeff Root and Mercyhurst Prep, who now all of a sudden look like the second or maybe even the first best team in 2A in District 10.
Yeah. Big games coming up. Next week against Eisenhower, host Fort LaBeouf to end the regular season. We'll see. They could keep running hot. See what I did there? No? All right.
Go to break.
All right. That was the North Shore Rewind, brought to you by Dustin's Funeral Home. When we get back, we're going to talk some college ball. Paul hit it at the beginning. We're going to unpack it here in the B. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quickfill.
Since 1946,
Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quickfill. We're I don't know, something in the water here this morning. I don't know, there's some tech issues, there's some power outage issues. What's that?
It's Monday.
It's Monday. You know what, though?
It's all downhill from here, man.
Well, really, I mean, it doesn't get
high
much
point
better.
of the week, baby.
If we're the high point of your week,
I meant, well, what's the high point of your week? I meant it all gets easier from here. We're not climbing uphill anymore. This is
true.
it. You have to wake up on Monday, you have to get to work, and it's smooth sailing from here.
true. Plus, it's one of those like rainy, cold.
This
Winter
is a
coming.
fall day, dude. Yeah.
I love this.
I don't hate it.
I love it. I live for this. This is one of the reasons I live in Erie. Isaac said, "Oh, you're going to complain about the cold." No, I won't complain about the cold come January, February. You know why? Because I can put layers on. I'm a layers guy. In the summer, people get mad at you if you take those layers off. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough.
There's your all downhill from here on.
We're not going to unpack that.
All right, that's enough. Let's get into the campus corner. All right, let's start local. Isaac, I'm going to throw it to you first. Edinburgh Downs, number 21, IUP 27-23 in a homecoming game at Sox Harrison Stadium. This was a thriller. Last-second touchdown by Evan Lowe with IUP leading 23-20. Edinburgh started a drive after IUP punted with 1:45 left on the clock. Isaac Bernard rushed for 11 yards, followed by some incomplete passes and a 3-yard scramble. Sets up 4th and 7. Bernard found Jacob Coburn for 16 yards on 4th down, keeping the drive alive. After a pass interference call, Bernard connected with Lowe for a 13-yard touchdown with 8 seconds left. Wilfredo Diaz intercepted Carson Hunter's pass on IUP's final play to secure the win. Isaac, how big of a win is this for Burrow on homecoming?
Well, A, it's a huge win, and B, and I'm not taking anything away from them, I still cannot understand how they won this football game. There is no statistic in this box score that would indicate that they were winning this football game, whether it's time of possession, which IUP had the ball for 37 minutes, whether it's total yards. Edinburgh was outgained by almost 100 total yards and only had 245 for the entire game. Third downs, they weren't proficient on defense. IUP was over 50%. I honestly... And I know that this doesn't normally factor in as much as we say it does. I think the crowd and the environment was probably a big part of it. I don't know if Edinburgh without it. I mean, you take into account the defense all year when they've been at their best have kept them in games. And this was the case again on Saturday. I think in seeing a little bit of the game, it was similar to Robert Morris, right? Where they didn't look great offensively. They kind of prodded along. They used Reed Martin to essentially give them good field position. And Reed Martin was great again today. Saturday, he averaged over 45 yards a punt. And you essentially just force IUP to drive the football down the field. And by the time we get to the end of the game, Edinburgh looked and they said, okay, we're in a position where we're one drive away from winning this thing, and that's all they had to do. 4 of 4 on fourth downs. Nick, you mentioned the one to keep the drive alive in the fourth quarter. That was huge. And Isaac Bernard, I mean, look, it's kind of like Pittsburgh, where if the defense allows you to only need one great drive per game to win, then more likely than not, a team's going to be able to find one drive in a game. So kudos to Edinburgh. I do think it's funny and still confusing the fact that they're 2-4 and their 2 wins are to a Division I team and a team ranked in the top 25 in D2, and their 4 losses are to teams that aren't nearly as proficient as that, maybe outside of East Stroudsburg. So huge win for Edinburgh. I think Jake Nolf continues to put impressive wins on his resume. I also think, though, this is just frustrating to Edinburgh fans that, like, you can beat good teams. They just aren't consistent enough. But nice win nonetheless.
Well, that was the exact note that I had too. Was your 2-4 and your 2 biggest wins are against Robert Morris and a top tier D2 team with IUP. How does that happen? And then you're falling to I don't want to say lower quality teams, but it's just the idea.
But lower quality teams. I'll say it. That's fine.
Well, I mean, granted, they had to play East Stroudsburg and Kutztown to begin the season, but the Bloomsburg loss doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think they could have won that game. And even Slippery Rock, they played close in 28-23. So, I mean,
played them right down to
they're
the last
right
minute.
There. They just seemingly they can't be consistent enough. And I think that's what this win illustrates.
So if you're a PSAC team, who do you want to play to get your second win in a row? Go ahead, say it.
Jonathan Williams was here, he'd say Clarion.
Well, that's exactly who they play next week. So they got a game against Clarion, and then unfortunately against Jonathan Williams, they come up against Gannon.
Should be a good game.
Yeah, could pull off a little bit of a win streak
game
here to finish out the season. I don't know. It's just exciting. I think they're playing well. They're heating up when they need to heat up, and we'll see how they finish out the rest of the season.
Edinburgh, you said it, Isaac. 4 for 4 on fourth down, and then IUP, a lot of penalties, 10 of them for 98 yards in that game. So kind of, shoot yourself in the foot whenever you get a drive going.
Yeah, we talked about the trap game with the Steelers a couple weeks ago. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe people just think they're coming into Edinburgh and it's their trap game, and Edinburgh is like, hey, we'll take that dub. Anyway, speaking of taking dubs away, Penn State wins in overtime against USC 33-30. Penn State moves up to number 4 after they defeat USC in overtime at the Coliseum. Penn State came back from a 20-6 halftime deficit to win in overtime. If only they could figure out to play in the first half. Paul, what's your takeaway from this game?
Drew Aller threw for 391 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions. The third one was that late game heave. Like, you can count it, I guess, but it's not really his fault. The story of the game, though, Drew Aller was awesome. This was a big boy game from Drew Aller.
Yeah.
From the playmaking from the pocket, extending plays, rolling to his right, finding Julian Fleming on that fourth down over the middle. Unbelievable big boy play. That's an NFL quarterback right there.
Yeah.
Scouts on the next level are salivating. They want to see that more and more often. 391 yards for the big fella. The player of the game, though, was Tyler Warren, and I don't know anyone who watched the game how you can disagree. Tied the FBS record for tight ends, 17 catches for 224 yards and a touchdown. And oh, by the way, if you can go back and find me another play instance at any level of football where the center who snapped the ball also caught a touchdown pass on the same play, I want to see it, because Andy Kotelnicki both infuriates me and like drives my imagination because there's so much motion on that play. Did he start at quarterback and then sort of like shrunk down and then walked up, stood over the ball, snapped it, and then took off down the field? I mean, that looked like a punt kick where you have the long snapper heave it back and then he's not allowed to be covered, so he just takes off down the field. That's what Tyler Warren did. This was like a faux punt formation, double pass from Prabula. Oh my gosh, what a freaking game. USC unranked in this one. They did drop 2 straight games, but USC was 11th in the country 2 weeks ago, and they've since dropped 3 straight games. But this was a good win for a good program. USC is no slouch. Moses, what was the quarterback name?
For USC?
Yeah, I have it on the screen.
Miller Moss.
Moss.
Yeah.
That kid's good too. A little scrawny. He's going to need some time to grow into a potential NFL draft pick, but a very efficient, accurate quarterback. They talked about that 4-receiver set that the USC Trojans can line up with before the game. So this is a team that could throw the rock around. I was impressed by USC's run game, but Penn State at the end, I think you said it on Saturday, Isaac, if they could figure out how to play the first 2 quarters, we have a legitimate national championship threat in Happy Valley.
Well, and I think and I misspoke, by the way, they're up to number 3.
Yeah.
How important was this first win, Isaac, I'm coming to you, against, really they haven't played a ranked team at all this year, and then this was maybe they needed to win this game. What's that?
Illinois was ranked. They were 19th when they played them.
I think more importantly, guys, and I think Paul will agree with me, I think it's the way they won this game. James Franklin, give him credit for building up the program. The one thing he hasn't been able to do is fight through adversity in tough games. And Paul made a good point. USC, they probably should be a ranked team. They had 2. They're a broken tackle and a penalty away from being undefeated. So they're a much better team than what presents the eye. And Penn State is not a team that in previous years have been built back to come back in games. So I think you saw, to me, the first 2 drives in the second half for them to go down the field and be able to score 2 quick touchdowns and show that, look, we've got fight to us. And I think that's what Drew Aller even said after the game is we got a different sort of intensity than we've had in previous years. And guys, keep this in mind, too. This is going to sound crazy. It is not out of the question that Penn State could go into their matchup against Ohio State in 3 weeks, number 1 in the country. Texas has to play Georgia this week. Oregon's got a tough matchup with Illinois coming up in a couple of weeks. They could slip up. So, you could see Penn State at number 1 in a few weeks. And now the pressure's on. And to be able for this Nittany Lion team to be able to keep up with it. But a huge win for them. And I also think it gets them into the playoffs because even if they lose to Ohio State, 11-1 in the Big Ten, you're going to be in.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, this game was big on all angles. I think I was thinking the same thing when I was watching Aller play. I'm like, okay, he needs this to win. He needs this to get those looks for NFL scouts. Like, this game, I think, will be the one they point to as his draft stock continues to rise. Or if he does get picked in the first round, this will be the game that they point to.
He's done all the requisite things from a quarterback standpoint in terms of running an offense, having the the ability to throw the ball, drive the ball downfield. He's got the arm, he's got the legs. He needed that moment. He needed that drive. My team's down, we need 1 score. What does this guy do when the pressure's on? And he lived up to the billing. He was absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. And if they both keep winning, Penn State and Ohio State,
what a clash.
How big is that game going to be?
It's big every year. That it gets even bigger.
I don't have it up in front of me. Where's that game at?
It's in Happy Valley. Time is still to be determined. It's going to probably be at noon, which is frustrating. But
seriously.
But it's not
the
the
reason they
game.
do that is because if you do that game at night, everybody's going to be
nobody's showing up. Game day will be there, no doubt, too, I bet. So, well, that would make it a night game. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Either way, it's going to be a huge game, but I think in Happy Valley, advantage Penn State. Before we take our next break, I want to take a second and thank all of our sponsors, Quick Fill, Duskus Funeral Home, Dauber Auto Supply, John's Wildwood Pizza, Jenny's Sales and Service. Without them, we wouldn't be here for you. When we get back, we're going to talk some baseball. The Guardians, I'll say, upset the Tigers. That's only because I picked the Tigers to win. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill.
Quick Fill gasoline is made right here
Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. Maybe we haven't done our job. And I say that because we've hyped up a lot of football. Because we love football. And football, in terms of the landscape of the sports world, is still king. And it's not even close. But we do need to talk about some baseball. And I'm a Pirates fan, so I am not used to talking October baseball. So this is new for me. I'm going to need you guys' help to get us through this. So we're going to talk about some Guardians baseball. Before we do, Paul, we didn't have enough time to hit your 2-minute drill in the last segment, and I want to hit it because it'll kind of put a bow on everything North Shore happening over the last week. So you ready?
Absolutely. Lot to talk about.
All right. Ready? Go.
All right, the Penn State Baron women's soccer team scored 3 second-half goals to defeat Mount Aloysius in AMCC action on Saturday 4-0. Baron registered its third straight conference shutout, and 4 different goal scorers helped the Lions collect their 4th conference win. Kate Zepp in the Edinburgh women's cross-country team led them to a second-place finish at the Fighting Scott Invitational, winning the Invitational title with a time of 23:06.6. Her teammates Katie Bauer took 4th, while Alexa Trax also secured a top 10 finish. Batista Corti and Rafa Hyde scored as the number 16 Gannon men's soccer team defeated Westchester 2-0 on the road for their 3rd straight dub. Andre Morasis earned his 4th shutout with 5 saves, helping Gannon improve to 7-2-2 overall. The Erie Otters, now 3-3, earned their first home win of the season with a 6-3 comeback victory over first-place Windsor. After falling behind 2-0, Gabriel Fresca, Dylan Edwards, and Wesley Royston sparked a 5 unanswered goal surge in the 3rd period, with Brett Hammond netting the game winner. Rookie goaltender sensation Noah Erdelin stopped 40 shots, helping Erie hand Windsor its first regulation loss. Let's go to high school. Danny Lindenberger of Fairview. His 2 goals were enough for the Tigers to beat the Cathedral Prep Ramblers 2-1 last week. Grace Faulkner out of McDowell. She starred for the Trojans. 2 goals and 2 assists when they won 4-0 at Harbor Creek. How about Abby Arian out at Girard? Her 8th hat trick this season, 8 plus 2 assists, dominated the statistics for the Yellow Jackets. 7-1 victory versus Erie High. Let's go out to Fort LaBeouf. Blake Glass. For a 2nd straight week, Blake set the Piccanina Park course record, 16 minutes, 70 seconds, when the Bison beat Mercyhurst 21-34. Allison Sawyer out of Corey recorded a team-high 11 kills for the Beavers. Ava Regal out of Union City recorded the fastest time for a dual meet, and the number 22 Pitt Panthers stayed undefeated on the season, 17-15 over Cal. They are 6-0 for the first time in 42 years.
I feel like I'm at home. As soon as the music ends, I get the finger from Paul. Wait, pause. I feel like I'm just right at home, and Kate's like, "Stop talking. Just don't talk yet. Keep moving." But you're right. You had a lot of stuff there to get into, and gosh, I feel like we need more time because Pitt. That was a huge win for them last weekend.
Didn't even unpack it. Yep.
We haven't even really talked about Pitt being undefeated this year, and I mean that's a huge win for them. They've relied on Holstein a lot this year. Like you said, in this game, they were able to rely on the defense and to be able to pull out a win.
6 total sacks by the defense. Jimmy Scott had 3 of them. Cal misses a field goal late. And like I said, for undefeated for the first 6-0 in 42 years. Let's see, who was there 42 years ago? Hold on.
Kenny Pickett, right?
His name, oh, God. No, another quarterback who played in Pittsburgh in high school, though. You were close.
Feels like 40 years ago.
Mandarino, something like that.
Right,
I can't remember.
I don't know. Which, by the way, those Dan Marino coming out of retirement commercials, they get me every time.
Love that.
They're hilarious. I don't care what you say.
Emmett Smith sleeping on the sideline, and then Dan pulls down the bifocals to see the wrist. That's fantastic.
Younger NFL fans are like, I don't even know who these people are. And then, we didn't even talk about Kayla McBride and the Lynx. Like, they're in the finals, and
I didn't put it in. I wanted to
crazy.
lead off with it. They were up 1-0. They just lost.
Yeah.
So they're tied 1-1. I didn't want to.
You're good. Good. So many good sports stories happening.
A lot of things that we leave on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of stuff that we couldn't leave on the cutting room floor, let's talk about the Cleveland Guardians, and let's put a bow on the division series, and then we'll get into the conference series. So Cleveland and the Detroit Tigers played last week, and it was over the last week, 5-game series. Cleveland pulls out the series. They defeat the Tigers 7-3 in Game 5 of the division series, and this is their first trip to the AL Championship Series since 2016. Isaac, I'm going to throw it to you first. And is this a bigger win for the Guardians in terms of moving on, or even though the Tigers lost, would you still consider this a win for the franchise and where they were in the later half of the season?
Yeah, I would say for the Tigers, it's a win for the franchise, although A.J. Hinch has had plenty of playoff experience, and he knows you can't make it back here as that easy. So I think that there's going to be an understanding that for Detroit, you got to work even harder next year. But for the Guardians, I think the key for them in this series, and something that they had not had since the 2016 World Series run that they have now, is clutch hitting.
Yeah.
For the last 4 or 5 years, the Guardians were a hit singles, hit maybe a double here and there to the gap, but it's station to station, right? Move the guys along the base paths and hope that you can string 5 or 6 straight hits together. The David Fry grand slam to me in the 5th inning that really ended the game illustrates the fact that Cleveland has grown up. They are now a team that can get clutch hits from guys in the lineup who in years past have not been able to do so. David Fry's a big example. Heck, Brian Rocchio had 2 huge hits in the 9-hole in game number 5. And so I think that's the difference between these two teams. Detroit is young. They relied a lot on their stars and their pitchers, whether it's Tarek Skubal or the bullpen. Kerry Carpenter was a big piece. But I just still think there's work to do for Detroit. And for the Guardians, they now have clutch hitting, and that's huge.
Yeah, Lane Thomas is who hit that grand slam, and I only know that because I was watching this game. And
that's right. I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was just trying to save you some comments on Twitter and YouTube. Lord knows I've done that a bunch on this show. Don't get me wrong.
David Fry was the hero in Game 4, not Game 5.
Fry, I mean, yeah. I watched that Cleveland lineup, and I look at guys like that, and then I look myself in the mirror, and I'm like, yeah, I could have made it. Anyway, Lane Thomas's grand slam. I'm watching this game, and coming into the 5th, I really feel like the momentum was behind Skubal and the Tigers. You really felt like the Tigers had a chance in this game, that they were going to go on and face the Yankees. And then Thomas hits that grand slam off of Skubal, who he'd been scoreless in 28 consecutive innings up until that point. Once that grand slam is hit, the air is out of anything that the Tigers had going. The air is out of the bag, and it just seemed like it was Guardians from there on out. And they rode that to the end of the series and end of the game. Clase, I don't know. I don't remember if it was this game or one of the other games when he came out with the wild thing pitching entrance. I was like, they're going to win the World Series. Again, a reference that our younger listeners won't understand.
Win the whole dang thing.
So, putting above anything else on the Tigers before we wrap this up, because I think Isaac hit the nail on the head. I think this is a net win for the Tigers. It is tough to get back to the postseason, but they have and we see this because of the Seawolves. There is a lot of talent coming up through the ranks, and I think the Tigers are going to be good. If they can keep a team together, I think the Tigers have a good shot to be good over the next 3 to 5 years. Anything else on the Tigers?
No, I think everything is pretty much set in stone with them. And like you said, now they can add some vet pieces next year and maybe make another run at this thing.
Yep. All right, so then let's look ahead. Guardians versus Yankees in the ALCS. I mean, I grew up a Pirates fan, which means I had to find a different team to root for. So I went to Fenway in high school and fell in love with the Red Sox. So I have a natural hatred now for the Yankees. So that aside, I do think the Guardians, I wasn't a believer against the Tigers, but I do think that they have a shot against the Yankees moving into the ALCS. New York eliminated the Royals in 4 games, while Cleveland outlasted the Tigers in 5, like we just talked about. I don't know. Do we think that the Guardians have enough offensive firepower to go against a Aaron Judge-led Yankees team?
All I heard all yesterday, all this morning driving back into town was about how the New York Yankees, A-Rod talking to Derek Jeter. There's a conversation that they had about this being
so unbiased.
Right. Well, but basically, from their perspective, this is the easiest path to the World Series in 20 years. That's what they think about the Guardians. That's what they're saying out loud to each other with reporters around. Okay. So there is no gamesmanship here. It's like, well, they're a tough opponent. They deserve to be here. Like the NFL coach talk. They're just outright, nope, Tigers. Cleveland, it doesn't matter. They're good against the AL Central. They just feel confident about it. So I don't know if you need any more inspiration, any more fire in your belly as a Guardian. But oh boy, I post that quote right on the locker room door, so they have to see it every time they go in and every time they leave the locker room. This is what the Yankees think about you.
Shades of Major League happening in real life.
Time for Joe Boo to wake up the bats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have the high-priced market team of the Yankees. You have the low budget Guardians.
Something like the payroll difference. The Yankees this year are $309 million, and the Cleveland's like $106.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Isaac, what do you think the X factor has to be for the Guardians to win this series against the Yankees?
Their bullpen is going to have to be next to unhittable.
Yeah.
That to me is going to have to be the key. And so far, we've seen that for the most part, it has been. I worry about the firepower from New York, not just from the Juan Sotos and Aaron Judges, but the rest of their lineup's getting production as well. It's hard to not pick the Yankees in 5 or 6 games in this series, but I think if Cleveland's bullpen is able to shut guys down, they've got a shot to win this thing. They have to lengthen the lineup with their talent, but if they can keep games close going into the 6th or 7th inning, they have the advantage, and that's what they have to think about. Consider this a 5-inning game every time you play the Yankees, and then see if your bullpen can go the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, Judge has stereotypically not been a factor in the playoffs, so I'll be curious to see if he bounces back in this one. I think the X factor in this series is going to be Jose Ramirez. Can his bat stay hot against the likes of Garrett Cole and that Yankees starting pitching rotation? I don't know. I was a doubter last series against Cleveland, so I'm going to pick them this time. Every time I pick Cleveland, they lose, though, so maybe that's not such a good thing. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, we got some NFL Week headlines we're going to be bringing your way. Can't wait to talk about the Browns this week. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by
For nearly
Quickfill.
40 years, the Edinburgh community has been trusting Dauber Auto Supply for the
Welcome back. You're listening to Flagship City Sports Talk, brought to you by Quick Fill. It felt good to talk some baseball. But let's come home. Let's bring it back. We only have 2 games to talk about in the past and a game to preview for tonight. So a lot to get to here in 10 minutes. So let me kick us off, and let's start here because I think this will be the shorter conversation. Here's my headline for the Steelers this week. Steelers punch-out win against Raiders. Watt with 2 forced fumbles and 2 tackles for a loss. This game was uglier than the score would make you realize. If you're a Steelers fan and you woke up and just checked the ESPN scores, you're thinking, all right, win against the Raiders, which was a home game, by the way. Did you see all those terrible towels through there?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. And I love how
Vegas is a destination. It's the same thing when Cleveland played there a couple of weeks ago.
And you know how cheap flights are to Vegas from Pittsburgh?
And there's
ridiculously cheap.
There's no Las Vegas Raiders fans. They're all in Oakland.
No. And Vegas tried. They put white towels all over the. Did you see any white towels in those stands? I didn't see any white towels in those stands. Anyway, home game aside, this is what stuck out to me against them. And Paul and I were just talking about this a little bit ago. The Steelers defense won this game. And is that a recipe for success moving forward?
It has to be.
Yeah.
Because what we just said, the Steelers are 4-2. The defense has played outstanding, amazing, top shelf, maybe the best defense in the league in 4 games.
Yeah.
And the other 2 games, they were right around average or maybe slightly below. And the games that their defense played amazing, the offense didn't really have to do much.
Right.
You need 1 drive, they need 1 touchdown, and they do just enough. They score just enough points, and the defense gets the win. The 2 games where the defense is just average, they lose both those games.
Yeah.
So the formula, is it sustainable? Well, it's kind of what it was last year. They're going to be slightly over 500. I mean, they're good enough. The Steelers are frustrating to anybody because they can beat anyone, but they can also lose to anyone. Yeah. So every week it's sort of a coin flip. What Steelers defense are we going to get? I will say, TJ Watt is, I think Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year last year, and he had a blocked. Oh, he was tremendous yesterday, too. TJ Watt, I don't know. TJ Watt is one of the best defenders I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He had that sack at the end of the game. He was double. He was double. Tackle and a tight end. Split it, spun around it, punched the ball. Yeah. The dude is unbelievable. And they have just enough work in the secondary has actually improved this year. They've gotten better secondary, second-level play.
I love Dante Jackson.
Jackson's been good. Minka's good. Joey Porter Jr. is coming into his own. They've got some and Deshaun Elliott.
Yes, that's how it's good.
And I told you, Deshaun Elliott is a player. Like, he's going to make plays. Is it sustainable? Yeah, because football is and always will be a game that if you can run the ball and stop the run, you got a chance in every game. And if you can hit the quarterback, that's a plus. And the Steelers can do that. They can run the ball, they can stop the ball or stop the run, and they have TJ Watt to hit the QB.
But they are not built to come from behind. So if this formula works if they're on top.
But I'm saying,
have you seen the second half schedule for the Steelers? You got the Ravens twice. You got the Bengals twice. You got the
Steelers
the Chiefs are coming to town.
Every single game they're going to play.
How are you more optimistic about this than I am? Because here's how I see this. The run game looked great. Harris finally looked like he wasn't running in cement. But here's my biggest fear, and Isaac, I'm going to toss this to you because you've been our Fields truther this year, is the passing offense is near the bottom of the league. Here's the only teams worse than the Steelers. The Broncos, the Browns, which we'll talk about, the Chargers, which, credit that to John Harbaugh in the run game, the Titans, and the Patriots. That's
oh boy,
not great, Bob. So the problem is, what do you do to come from behind? Well, Pickens was your leading receiver, 3 receptions for, can't read my writing, 53 yards. Austin and Najee and Freiermuth all come in with two receptions. Jaylen Warren, your backup running back, ties for the lead in receptions with 3 for 11. The Steelers don't need a wide receiver. They need 2. You know what? Just go get Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins at this point. Like, you need people that are going to catch the ball. Pickens can catch the most amazing acrobatic sideline catch, but that one that's handed to him in the breadbasket, gone, fumbled, right? So I guess, Isaac, where I'm finally bringing my question around to is this Justin Fields moving forward? do we move to a Russell Wilson, or are Fields struggles in the offense because of the lack of receptions?
I think it's, and I don't want to say that Justin Fields is devoid of blame. I mean, I know I've been a big proponent of him, but I think it's A, the lack of talent around him, and then B, the fact that up until last week, the running game hadn't been getting going. I just go back to this. You're not going to get anything better from Russell Wilson. You're just not. You're going to get more turnovers. You're going to get less mobility. And I think you're going to have a quarterback who is going to put Pittsburgh in more difficult situations, i.e. 3rd and long. You saw 3 times in this game they had a 3rd and 7+. Justin Fields took off and ran for a first down. Only one of them was by design. And so I think the problem with Pittsburgh's offense is the fact that they're not consistent in either form each week. This week it was the run game. Last 2 weeks ago, not the Dallas game, but the Indianapolis game, it was the passing game. So I think they have to find a way to be consistent. But I just if you want to go to Russ, fine. You're not going to get any better production from him. And if you're trying to make good on your promise, then so be it. But I don't think that this is a thing where you can just go and say, well, Russ is the answer to all problems, because I just don't think it is.
No, I don't disagree. I'll be curious to see what happens. I just think, and you expect them to be in the bottom of passing offense because it's an Arthur Smith offense, but you need some people that are going to help him out, and they don't have that right now. All right, moving into Cleveland. I'm just going to, for the sake of time,
dumpster fire.
Since Rich is already giving me the 3-minute warning, I'm going to just go ahead and give my headline because it's where I want to drive the conversation, and you know what? It's my show. So, Browns, $230 million dilemma. Deshaun Watson starts because the price tag says so. Okay. I have been giving Watson every benefit of the doubt. Personally, I don't like the guy. I'm glad he's not my quarterback. But you could have made blame on, okay, the run game wasn't so good. The defense is putting pressure. The offensive line was in shambles. Okay, the offensive line is not in shambles, but they're playing better. The run game is finally working. Defense and special teams looked much better. And Watson still finished 16 of 23 for 168 yards, and the Browns failed to score an offensive touchdown. They still haven't scored 20 points in a game this season. Cleveland got its only touchdown on a blocked field goal by Myles Garrett that McLeod Jr. scooped and returned untouched to the end zone. Listen to this. This is an eye-popping stat per ESPN. The Browns had been unsuccessful on their past 26 third down attempts with Deshaun Watson at quarterback until midway through the second half, which came on in a third quarter screenplay.
Yep.
I'm ready to just come out and say it. This is Deshaun Watson's fault. You have to make a change to Jameis Winston at this point.
Agree 100%. I watched every snap of that game. It was the worst quarterback performance I've seen since Skylar Thompson. There's a guy that the offensive line is not good. Don't get me wrong. And the run game was marginally better yesterday than it had been. But I'm seeing a guy who's just not seeing the field. He gets back in the pocket. That ball's got to be out. You got to know where you're looking. You got to know your check down. Too many times I see him drop back, hop. What he's hoping to see isn't there, or what I don't know if he's just not seeing anything open, and he's taken off up the middle. He took 5 sacks yesterday. They have 31 sacks given up on the year, leads the NFL. I was all on. He's rusty. He's going to get better. Give him some time. I haven't seen improvement, and actually, he may be getting worse.
No, I agree. And good news, Browns fans. Stefanski said he's sticking with Watson next week.
Oh, jeez.
All right, Isaac, we got about a minute left, so preview us the Bills at Jets tonight in 30 seconds.
It's a huge game for both teams. Winner is in first place. I think Buffalo's got to get their passing game going again, whether that's the quick play to the running back. I think James Cook has to be a big factor tonight. One thing that I'll be interested in keeping an eye on is how does Buffalo defend the Jets' passing attack in terms of keeping Aaron Rodgers in the pocket, because he's proved he's more mobile. I think this is a game Buffalo wins, but I think it's close and low scoring. 19-17 or something like that would be my final score. But if Buffalo loses this, there's going to be a lot of concerning talk about the Bills moving forward, because they'll have 3 straight losses.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Bills or Jets?
Jets.
Bills or Jets?
Bills.
I'm going Jets too. It'll be weird to see them win this game. All right, Erie, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Nick Gartman, signing off for Paul Adamzak, Rich Smith, and Isaac Petcash. That's it. We're done. Have fun.